Good evening and welcome to my world. It is Saturday, October 5th, 2019, journal number 186, T+186. I'd like to talk tonight about something that's interesting. It is interesting to me, and it may be of interest to you as well. It has to do with the great difference that exists between seeing the world from the inside out and seeing the world from the outside in. And hopefully that'll make sense in just a moment. It seems that every time I, uh, I visit the City of Hope, and every time I take it upon myself to go back to the sixth floor at Helford Hospital, which is the transplant floor, um, I am I'm bombarded with echoes of the experience that I had when I was an inpatient there. And the holographic brain does its best to ensure that that experience, you're reliving that experience, is as accurate and vivid as as humanly possible. And it does a pretty good job of that, I might add. Um, you get to hear and see everything that you experienced as an inpatient. You taste that metallic taste in your mouth of the various infusions of the chemo, of the flumitovine, of the melphalan, of the various different drugs that were infused into your body. Despite the fact that I've never been any place that was so immaculately clean as the sixth floor of Helford, um, you 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 still sense um, that cleanliness that makes it different from any place else you've ever been, and um, and it doesn't take much to take you back there. I mean, it doesn't take much to lead you right back to the third or fourth or fifth day post transplant, or the few days before during the conditioning chemo, um, for you to relive that experience in its entirety. And when you're in the ward, when you're on the floor, when you're an inpatient, you experience everything um, from the inside out. It's your perception of what's happening around you. Um, in many cases, that perception is kind of distorted because of what you're going through. It's distorted because it's not hard to remember that while you were going through it, while I felt um, absolutely confident that I would get through it, I had no idea how, nor did I have any idea how long it would take, nor did I have any idea what kind of setbacks we would have to deal with in the normal course of the transplant process. When you go back to visit, it's quite different. And as I mentioned the other day, my doctor, Dr. Snyder, asked me if I would visit a transplant patient who was on the third day of their infusions for the conditioning chemo, about to get their transplant on this coming Wednesday. I can actually see why my people would be reluctant to go back to the sixth floor. I understand that. I just can't um, see myself as one of those people. I couldn't say no. I was very fortunate in the fact that throughout all of the clinic visits that we had, especially towards the end when it was apparent that I was going to be a candidate for transplant, before we were sure that I would be accepted into the program, I had many people, many success stories shared unselfishly, generously with Leslie and myself, assuring me that I could get through this. That because they did, they knew that I could, and that was critically important. And I suppose that you can go ahead and accomplish the same thing if you hang out around the clinic waiting room, but it's not the same thing as having somebody walk into your room and say, "Hey, I did this. It's okay. You're going to be all right. And by the way, this is where the rocks are. So if you want to stay out of the water, this is what you have to do." Um, when you've been given that gift, it's really hard to say no. Um, it's hard for me to say no. I don't. Perhaps someone else could do it more easily than I could, but it's really hard for me to say no. To the point where, despite the discomfort, um, despite some of the anxiety that's associated with going back there, the reward of actually getting to help another human being who's about to go through the same thing that you did is far greater. Um, Aside from that, I think that there's a great benefit in confronting your fears and anxieties and transcending that experience. Conquering those fears, and I think it's an important part of the healing process. I don't believe for a moment that anybody goes through something like this and comes out unscathed, that comes out of it just exactly the way they were before. I would think that would be tragic. To me, it would be so sad if if there was nothing learned from the experience, if your heart didn't get bigger, if your understanding didn't expand, if your compassion and empathy didn't explode, um, recognizing the force of will, the sheer force of will it takes, and the courage it takes to to experience that crucible and get through it. Consequently, I think that I've pretty much decided that we're going to make a pilgrimage to the sixth floor um, every time we're down there. Every time we're down there at the clinic to see this patient who I asked if it would be okay if I dropped in 3 weeks from now, 3 weeks from last Thursday when I'm back at the City of Hope to see the doc and to get my blood work done. And he invited me to come back and possibly to see other patients, just to let them know that you can get through it. And if you can get through this, you can get through most anything. And I think that's the lesson here. I think that's the lesson here for everyone. Um, no matter what the adversity is, no matter how difficult the test, human beings as a whole are pretty resilient. And I think we can get through most anything if we have the support of community, people around us that care, that are genuinely rooting for us, that are giving us whatever we need to be successful. So think about that, and think about it from the standpoint of empathy and compassion if you can, and recognize that what you see from the inside looking out is different from what you experience from the outside looking in. And not only the fact that it's different and the recognition that it's different, but trying to determine in your own mind, for your own benefit, what difference that difference makes. Till tomorrow, stay well, take care. I really enjoy spending this time with you. And for all of those who answered my request for your opinion on what to do next, thank you so very much. It was great reading your comments so far. I look forward to reading more of them as we go forward. So thanks a lot.